How did the most heavily funded intelligence apparatus on Earth possess all the warnings, yet fail to stop one of the deadliest attacks in modern history? In the summer of 2001, the system was, in the words of the CIA director, blinking red. The agencies had the data, they had the intercepts, but the warnings never materialized into a cohesive defense. Instead, that intelligence gap led straight to American soil, leaving sites like military headquarters torn open and burning. Entrenched bureaucratic silos and communication breakdowns effectively blinded the system, keeping critical warnings isolated in separate vaults. To trace the roots of this breakdown, we have to rewind to the 1990s. Osama bin Laden was consolidating his network, explicitly declaring a holy war against the United States over its interventions in the Middle East. As you can see on this map, he took advantage of regional instability, moving operations across borders from Saudi Arabia to Sudan, and looking toward fractured states like Somalia to build a resilient multinational network. Meanwhile, the American intelligence landscape was still nursing a Cold War hangover. It was calibrated to monitor a massive singular rival like the Soviet Union, but it drastically lacked Arabic speakers and agile tracking protocols. A massive, slow-moving monolith was suddenly trying to track a decentralized, rapidly shifting enemy made up of small, autonomous nodes. A multi-billion-dollar system built for state-on-state symmetric conflict is inherently blind when dealing with a borderless, non-state threat. The architecture was looking for armies, not individuals. Inside the CIA, a dedicated unit known as Alex Station was actually formed to track bin Laden, but by law, their mandate was foreign. They monitored threats globally, outside American borders. The FBI held the exact opposite mandate. They were the domestic authorities, focused on catching criminals and managing threats only after they crossed into the country. Between these two agencies stood the wall, a legally enforced barrier separating foreign intelligence gathering from domestic criminal investigations. This separation bred intense bureaucratic mistrust. When analysts discovered critical findings abroad, the data literally hit a wall, preventing a collaborative defense. Right as a unified, coordinated enemy prepared to strike, the United States had effectively divided its own defense apparatus in half. That division proved fatal in late 1999 and early 2000. Al-Qaeda was initiating its planes operation, selecting operatives like Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mikhdar to carry out the mission. The CIA actually had these two men on their radar. They tracked them internationally, monitoring their movements through key meetings overseas. But when Hazmi and Midhar secured visas and traveled to the US, the CIA never notified the FBI. Because of the bureaucratic wall and a culture of interagency caution, the tracking responsibilities simply stopped at the border. That structural failure allowed two known high-level operatives to settle in San Diego, where they lived openly under their real names. By the spring and summer of 2001, the system was drowning in raw warnings.
Intelligence agencies in Italy, Jordan, Egypt, and the UK were all sending urgent reports about an imminent strike. The FBI was stuck in triage mode, buried under an overflowing funnel of daily emergencies. Analysts reacted to surface-level crises without connecting deeper patterns. Even when internal alarms sounded, like a Phoenix memo warning of terrorists in flight schools, the signal was swallowed by the noise. When Zacarias Moussaoui was actually flagged and arrested that August, the siloed system meant he was only held on immigration violations. His suspicious interest in flying large commercial jets was ignored by the upper chain of command. Gathering massive amounts of raw data is functionally useless if you lack the structural capacity to read it. The climax of these warnings came on August 6, 2001. The president's daily briefing delivered to George W. Bush was titled with chilling clarity, "Bin Laden determined to strike in U.S." CIA Director George Tenet was highly alarmed, recognizing that the threat level was peaking. But the entrenched legal barriers kept those foreign intelligence insights from turning into domestic police action. Despite these top-level alarms, there was no domestic mobilization. The hijacked planes that took off on the morning of September 11th met virtually no resistance from the agencies tasked with preventing the plot. The attack succeeded largely because America's intelligence architecture was configured to sabotage its own defense. As the dust literally settled over a grieving nation, The immediate shock gave way to a singular demand. How could a system fail so completely? Congress established the 9/11 Commission to cut through the public noise, investigate the institutional breakdowns, and find verified answers. The overriding conclusion of this final report was straightforward. The government's principal failure was an inability to connect the dots. The specific intel required to identify the hijackers was already sitting on various government desks, documented and filed, but isolated within competing bureaucratic vaults. The fallout forced an aggressive overhaul of the U.S. national security apparatus. The legal and cultural wall between foreign and domestic intelligence was systematically dismantled. As outlined in this document, new task forces and the creation of the Director of National Intelligence were designed to force interagency collaboration and improve the hiring and retention of specialized analysts. This restructuring also birthed new offensive tactics. The CIA rapidly shifted toward direct, lethal operations, utilizing unmanned drones to strike targets overseas before they could mobilize. But back home, everyday civilian life changed. The failure triggered the implementation of the highly visible, regulated security protocols that now define the public's interaction with the state. Driven by a mandate to never miss another signal, the intelligence community expanded into the modern era of global digital surveillance, shifting the domestic balance between privacy and security. But as we continue to pull in an increasingly infinite volume of digital information, a final question remains. Can the most advanced intelligence system on Earth ever truly connect every dot in the dark?